But I want to really quickly continue on this story because Lavoy Finicum was murdered. And fast forward, the first 7 people in Oregon that had their trial several months ago were found not guilty of all charges. The man that they shot and killed would have been found not guilty of all charges. He's dead. This is insanity what's going on. So then, fast forward some additional time, Jerry's back here. He gets a call from the FBI. Jerry, we want to meet you at the Rochester Dunkin' Donuts. This doesn't mean you can't go to Dunkin' Donuts anymore, folks, but I'm just telling you, that's where they wanted to meet him. And they wanted him to come alone. Jerry called me up. What do you think? I said, I think they're going to arrest you. And I think you do not go there without an attorney. Well, he went. He didn't go with an attorney, but he can go alone. That's all I'll tell you. But they didn't show up for the 9 o'clock meeting because there were too many people there. Then they rescheduled it for 1 o'clock. They didn't show up for the 1 o'clock meeting either. Too many people there. They were concerned for their well-being. That was the excuse they gave. Several days after that, though, they showed up. They showed up at Sue and Jerry's door. They forced their way in. They're all tacked out, carrying their M4s, with all their gear on. It's like it was a SWAT hit. They had vehicles all up and down their condo complex. They had people outside of every condo. They had agents out on the street and on the main road. It was nothing but a dog and pony show because Jerry would have gone peaceably. It never would have been a problem. There was no need of it. He went through hell initially. We found out where they were going to arraign him that day. And in 2 hours, we filled the damn courtroom. In 2 hours, we had more people in that courtroom than it could hold. That day, there were 2 issues that they were going to contend with. One was Jerry a flight risk? And 2, was he a threat to the community? That day, they didn't find Jerry to be a flight risk, but they scheduled another hearing on the following Monday to address the detention part of this. Well, we had a little more time to get people there. We had more people that day than we got here today. We filled 2 courtrooms, and we had people all outside on the stairs because we knew about this injustice. You had 5 character witnesses, all glowing. The magistrate says, well, you know what, I'm not going to make a decision right now. And as soon as she said that, I knew what she was going to do. She knew if she decided to keep Jerry in custody and not let him go home, awaiting trial, that she would have had a revolt. You see, the circles that I travel in, they don't take very kindly to this kind of stuff. That's you all. So, they took Jerry. We kept him here for an extra week or so, got a different attorney, but in the end, they moved him. Took a long time for him to get there, but they moved him to Nevada. He's in Pahrump, Nevada now, which is where you just heard him speaking from. Jerry, while he was there, started a Bible ministry. This guy is amazing. I mean, he starts a Bible ministry. He's even got the guards coming into the Bible ministry. They need it, let me tell you. And he starts the Bible ministry, and it's grown and grown and grown. And a few months ago, he called me up. He says, Jack, today I had the opportunity to try to save a man's life. He said they weren't treating him very well medically. He had some real issues. He collapsed on the floor up at the end of the hall from where I am, and he would stop breathing. He said, I went up there and started to perform CPR, worked hard at it. He said, it didn't work. The man died. And Jerry said, funny thing though, he said, you know me, I don't see color. We all bleed red. He said, this man happened to be a black man. And there was a lot of black folks that are in his unit there. After this happened, they all came up to him, and they all thanked him for trying. And Jerry was he was certainly impressed by that, but he was taken aback by that because he thought, hell, I'd do that. I'd do that for anybody. And for whatever reason, they thought this was a unique thing to them. And Jerry appreciated the thanks, don't get me wrong, but that's the guy he is. He's a hero in my view, and he deserves to get out of there. Real quickly, you got to understand what's going on with Jerry now. Jerry filed a plea bargain, many months ago. It puzzled me, I'm going to be honest with you. I was not in favor of this, but after he explained it to me, I understood completely, and I'm no longer upset about it. I mean, Jerry knew and found out that the FBI was threatening to arrest other members of the group that he was with, and even family members and so forth. And Jerry felt, well, you know what, if I take that card off, because they wanted them to turn info over to the FBI so that they could have a greater case against Jerry. Those people, and I know who they are, would never do it anyway. But what happened was that Jerry pled guilty and agreed to serve 6 years in prison, and he's done nothing wrong. And he did it because he said, well, I don't care. I'm not going to let anybody else suffer because of what I have done. So what happened is the first 7 in Oregon were found not guilty of all charges, and Jerry instantly said, God, I'm going to withdraw my plea. He said, I want to stand before a jury of my peers. That's the way this is going to go. And so Jerry very quickly issued a withdrawal of that plea. The way it works is you have to go before the judge to get it approved. They have intentionally not let him go before the judge for months. He still hasn't been able to go before the judge to get this approved, so therefore he doesn't even have a trial date. But the thing that you got to understand is that the first 6 men that were there, that got arrested, had their trial. And over the last 2 months, the prosecution got to put on a 7-week trial. 7 weeks, and the defense had 2 days. Let me tell you why they only had 2 days. They have a biased judge who was appointed by Barack Obama who wants to see each and every one of these men incarcerated because it's all political. But let me tell you what happened. There were 10 witnesses approved and going to testify for the defense. 10. One of them was Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore. You may not know her, but I have gotten to know her. She's a great woman. And she was one of those witnesses. The judge went before the 10 of them and told them in private that if any of you testify in defense of these defendants, you're going to be considered unindicted co-conspirators. What that means is that anything they say can and would be used against them if they decided to arrest them when they were testifying. They called attorneys in, and the attorneys advised these witnesses that they shouldn't testify because of fear that they would be arrested. 9 of the 10 did not testify. Only 1 man had the courage to do it, which forced the defendants, who shouldn't have to be forced to testify on their own behalf. They wouldn't even let the pocket constitution in her courtroom. Not allowed. If you came in the courtroom with the pocket constitution, you were going to be held in contempt of her court. Her court. It's the people's court. It's not her court. This is what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what Jerry's confronted with. This is what happened. We now know, and I didn't know it until 2 days ago, that the jury deliberated, we know that, for about a week. Everyone was surprised because it was fixed. There was no way the defendants were going to get through this and be found not guilty. They asked one question, and the question was this. The jurors asked the judge, if we find the defendants not guilty of conspiracy, because there really isn't any, what does that mean with respect to all the other charges? The judge said, if you find them not guilty of conspiracy, none of the other charges are valid. On their first ballot, on their first run-through, they found all 6 not guilty of conspiracy. The judge was outraged. She said, "I do not accept your verdict. You're to go back and deliberate more. I want a different verdict." This is true. Easily verifiable. They did actually. They should have held firm, but they didn't. Came back with a different verdict. 4 of the 6 men, hung jury on every charge. Not guilty on, they didn't find them not guilty, but they couldn't find them guilty, so it was a hung jury on every charge. One of the men had 2 charges he found them guilty on, and one guy who was a defendant, one of the 6, a defendant, was called earlier during the trial by the prosecution to testify against the defendants. At that point, they had to acknowledge that that defendant was in fact an FBI informant the whole time. He wound up being charged guilty 8 of the 10 charges. 8 of the 10, that guy's guilty. I don't know what they're going to do about that, but that's going to be very interesting. But this is what these guys are up against. This is what's happening. What we need you to do, and I seriously mean this, I have a couple other people I'm going to be meeting with next week that have direct access to key people in the White House and one in the Attorney General's, and the Attorney General himself. We have to demand that these men be released and come home. They're not guilty of anything. They should just be released. Those, exactly. The prosecution, even with this finding, the prosecution has the option to not schedule another trial, not retry these men. The prosecution can just say you're free to go. I don't think they're going to do that. And if they don't do that, they got to wait 8 more months before they get another trial. And they're doing it on purpose. None of these men have been let to go home. Families are being destroyed. Financially, they're getting ruined. People are being left alone. They can't see their children, and they have done nothing wrong except had the courage to stand. I always say about Jerry Delemus lost his liberty for the simple reason that he defended another man's liberty. As the same with the rest of them. So today I call for all of you to help us out. Write letters to the Attorney General. You got the address. Make a lot of noise. Don't leave this man in jail another day without making a lot of noise. Let everybody know we do not accept this tyranny. I want to see our President Donald Trump, and I think that once all of the rest of the stuff he's got to deal with gets cleared, that I do think he'll address this. And I certainly like our Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. I have a very high regard for him. So I think the day will come where we'll be able to get this all straightened out. But in the meantime, we the people have to make some noise. So I ask you all of you, to not let him sit there anymore, to fight. If you have contacts, call them up. If you know attorneys, good ones, and they're ready to would help Jerry out pro bono, please give them a phone call. Let's get him all the help that he needs so we can get him home. Thank you very much. I'm going to come back a little later and talk a little bit about Donald Trump, but Jerry stole some of my thunder, so I'm going to cut it a bit short.
Croc TV.